Right, our guest is here. Was that your police car that pulled up, by the way?
It was my police
I
car.
thought it was. Do you know why? I thought it was. Because where we're recording this, there's a big window on our left-hand side. This police car flashed past a few minutes ago. I was like, oi,
what have I done?
Here's our guest. It's really nice to meet you. So please can you introduce yourself and your job title?
Absolutely. So I am PC 132 James Cullimore, and I am the Business Improvement District dedicated officer for the city centre.
Okay, we talked a lot about the BID in the past, the Business Improvement District. We've had Pep on as a guest in the past to talk about the work that him and his organisation are doing to really invigorate our city centre. And there's so many different things happening. So you're kind of the police officer funded by the BID.
Yep.
To try and be there for city centre businesses that are facing various issues.
Absolutely.
If you could expand a little bit more on your role, then what's that going to look like?
So at this moment in time, it's engaging with the businesses and hearing their initial concerns. So I've done 429 visits so far in the last, just under 2 months.
429.
429 of 281 unique businesses. So some have been visited more than once. Obviously, they're the guys that are having more issues than others. So my role really is to speak with them, talk about their current issues around the city centre. So antisocial behaviour, street drinking, shoplifting being a major one. It's a national thing at the moment. And doing partnership, working with Peterborough Positive, working with the council, working with my city centre team as well, of how we can overcome those challenges and how we can improve the city centre as a whole.
And I guess they've generally been positive towards you,
absolutely, yeah. It's in terms of having the Bobby on the beat in the city centre, there's
Bobby on the beat. Oh no, Bobby on the beat. What a phrase! I love that phrase.
Yeah. Nostalgic.
Yeah, and with the custodian hat as well, so I look a bit more nostalgic as well whilst I'm going around. But yeah, for people to see that presence in the city centre, I think it's reassuring, and certainly with the businesses that I have engaged with, everyone's been really, really positive.
So you talk about presence, you talked about that being reassuring for many of the businesses that you visited.
Absolutely.
Would your typical week, in a typical week, would you spend a lot of time patrolling the city centre, in and out of shops, in and out of businesses, being visible?
Absolutely. So I have a very small briefing with my sergeant before I come in, so I book on at Wood, and then I'm straight out to the office, and 9 times out of 10 I'll just throw my bag down and get my coat on and get out there. So and that ranges differently, so my different shifts, so they go from earlies, range from earlies and lates. Discussions we're having is possibly even working with outreach, so being even earlier on the street, so sort of 5, 6, 7 a.m. To work with some of the more vulnerable people in the city.
We've talked a lot on this podcast about antisocial behaviour in certain parts of the city centre being a real issue for a lot of people. So this is a big step towards finding ways to tackle that.
Yeah, the Franco-Manca bench. I remember that being mentioned as a hot spot in Cathedral Square. I mean, would you just like to give us an overview of crime in the city centre and sort of, because a lot of people have this perception that it's like a war zone. If you looked on social media, you'd think it was some sort of battleground, and it's not really the case, or is it?
No, I don't think
war
it's really
zone.
the case. I don't.
Have you never seen it? Right, if you go on Peterborough, not me, but if you're going, I'll never go in there, it's full of this, it's full of that, it's full of youths, it's full of this, that and the other, and it's not the case, is it?
Well, I get there is an antisocial behaviour.
Sorry, Joe, we just cut you off completely but
I get that antisocial behaviour is an important thing to deal with, and there are people that see a lot of that going on in the city centre, particularly at night, maybe particularly at the weekend. But in terms of describing our city ever resembling a war zone, I would say it's far-fetched.
Oh, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
I'd agree. I think the city centre is such a concentrated area. It's what 1 square mile is. It's not very big at all. So everything that is happening within that area. So I haven't got any crime statistics, sorry, but from how I view it, is that there is certain issues that resemble the entire city. So antisocial behaviour, street drinking. If you went to different boroughs of the city, you'd still see the same. There'd be shopliftings in major supermarkets. There'd be shopliftings in smaller convenience shops. There will still be, but because it's so concentrated and it's such an, I think it's more prevalent to people.
Let's define what we all understand antisocial behaviour to mean. What is it in your eyes, Jay?
So antisocial behaviour for me is what we're seeing with some youth at the moment. So we've got a cycle on Bridge Street. So it's not between 9 and 6. No cycling. People not doing that because it's unsafe. It's essentially being a nuisance to the public. It's stopping them from doing their day-to-day tasks, and whether that's a case of someone riding a bike, e-scooters, street drinking, that kind of thing.
Is street drinking illegal?
So we currently have a public space protection order, which covers the city centre, and then we also have one in Millfield as well. So we currently have almost exclusion books, so we can give people a ticket, and that will exclude them from the city centre for 6 hours, and then if they were to come back, they are arrestable for that. Yeah.
John, what do you see as a good definition for antisocial behaviour that people are witnessing now in our city centre?
Yeah, I guess, as you just said, it's anything that restricts other people living their normal lives within the centre. Behaviour that damages property, businesses, that sort of thing, and we do see that as well. We've seen tags and things in and around the city, damage to things. I guess you're cracking down on that. You and I were at a briefing not so long ago for Operation Interstellar,
Indeed,
which is a part of it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So that was primarily a shoplifting operation, which is now turning into a legacy operation. So at that point, it was run by our CID areas, our volume crime teams, and our serious crime teams were focusing on it's a top 10 list of offenders, and with that we then culminated in a day of action where we had undercover police officers, and on that day I think we had 4 arrests, of one not quite connected with the op, but it was really. It was good. It was really good, and also within that op, we also had the opportunity to bring out some of our less experienced colleagues. They were able to come out, and as we're learning to be cops, we get what we call packs, so learning packs, and we have to sign off a certain amount. So they were able to go out there, do stop searches, make sure they're doing all the good stuff with that, making sure they're getting their arrest legal, and practicing that in a real life setting. And it was really good because I felt it was really good because there was so much partnership working in that. Yeah. There was a lot of different kind of areas that were really together with that. So
joined up thinking by all the different groups involved in this.
Enforcement officers, people working with rough sleepers.
Yep.
Because it's all part of a general aim to help some people and also stop behaviour in terms of shoplifting.
Absolutely.
I just want to go back to antisocial behaviour just for a minute. I didn't feel we quite finished that one. No. And I think the Interstellar thing's brilliant. And shoplifting, of course, I feel for any business that has to suffer losses because there are people that are choosing to not pay for their stuff. Yep. And I know how important that is. But I'd like to try and get an understanding of what element of antisocial behaviour is illegal, i.e. enforceable for you to deal with, because I'm imagining that a lot of it will just be us members of the public wanting to go out for dinner or for drinks or to the theatre in the city centre, wanting to park our cars and safely walk to where we're going without feeling threatened or intimidated.
Absolutely.
It's drawing that line, isn't it?
And where is the line?
Well, if somebody's riding, for instance, I walked through Cathedral Square late on what would it be, Friday evening, and some lad just shot his BMX across there. Now, is that antisocial behaviour?
There's things like that. There's things like young people having a drink on the street,
congregating, Guildhall,
gathering in groups. So as you're walking along, just you and your partner or something, you feel intimidated, and it kind of stops you from wanting to go out because there's this feeling of not violence but intimidation almost.
Yeah,
and that's not illegal for these people.
No. And I don't think it's fair to tar groups of youths with all the same brush, because they're not. There's certainly a lot of guys who, you mentioned the Franco Manca bench, that sit around there and congregate, who are just there to have a good time. But there is elements, throughout the city where we've seen it's a nuisance behaviour at the end of the day. It's about.
But you're powerless to deal with what you call nuisance behaviour, aren't you?
In the city, in terms of outside, absolutely. I think
Or
it is a difficult thing.
If there was a presence, more police presence, it would maybe sort of see a less gatherings of large groups of people who maybe had a drink or two that want to, I don't know, not cause trouble, but just, I don't know. Am I barking up the wrong tree? Because I want to choose my words carefully, because I think it's a good point to make. You cannot tar everyone with the same brush, whatever age, whatever they are, whoever they are. But that general feeling of Peterborough of a night time, feeling safe for people to go about and walk here, walk there. There is an issue with that.
A perception of
it.
Yeah.
And I would love to know what you and your police colleagues, we've spoken to Pep from the Beard about it. We do need to try and get our city centre feeling safer at night time.
Yep, absolutely. So think of a good news story, I guess, around antisocial behaviour is Puttstars. Puttstars, when they initially opened, had a large gathering, almost a migration of youths that were coming into the bus station.
This is Puttstars inside Queensgate, and they're the putting thing.
It's a bit of an example because it is inside Queensgate, so there's a bit more powers in terms of what Queensgate can do. So they can have banning orders, they do that, but there was quite a large operation. So I've only been on the city centre team since the end of October, but I was part of the northern neighbourhood side as well, and certainly of an evenings and weekends, we were being pulled into the city centre to help with the large gatherings. You know, if Puttstars didn't want people, we were helping the security to help them to leave the centre. And then obviously Queensgate from that point then have their powers. You know, they're more than welcome to refuse service to anyone. So working with them about that side, it is difficult when it's the main city centre, obviously Cathedral Square. I'll be honest, over the last couple of months, so we've obviously had the ice rink there, we had a market there, which was, I felt, really, really successful. And having that space that was because it is a bit of a dead space, especially with the news that the fountains aren't going to come on again.
Don't get started on the fountains.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But in terms of that space, like, it could be utilised so much better. And that's, you know, something we can work with Peterborough Positive, something we can work with the council, are actually, you know, making that a place for people wanting to go there, and you know, like I say, coming into the city centre for those kind of things.
Just going back to the Interstellar and the shoplifting, one of the things that became quite obvious in that is that a lot of the main perpetrators, it is a very small group who are doing a lot of stuff. You mentioned that there's a top 10 there of people, and some who'd been around for years, but they just hadn't, you know, they'd been away for a while and come back. And then you've got sort of gangs who specifically do shoplifting. And how difficult is it to target people like that?
Very. So obviously we have the groups of people that, like you said, have been around for years. Slightly easier to target because people know who they are, and that's kind of something that I want to implement, and maybe we'll go into that in a bit, but in terms of implementing for the city centre, so the businesses are aware of certain people and who they are. But you know, the implementation of the DISC app that Peterborough Positive have brought in, people are able to identify people a lot easier,
and businesses are able to talk to each other,
so they can use
Peterborough Positive.
So through,
look out for this guy, look out for this girl, look out for this group.
So there's currently the CityLink radio, which certain businesses have. I believe it's a subscription service, but it's not something I get involved with. But it's a really good link between themselves, the council enforcement officers, each other's shop, and Peterborough CCTV, that are able to say, these guys are coming into town, or I've just seen this person, or, you know, recently I had. I was on a foot patrol in town, and CCTV were able to identify people who had been stopped at a particular shop and were moving towards Rivergate, actually. So I was then able to go towards Rivergate and actually, I feel I prevented a shoplift from two young females, just by being there and speaking to the staff and making sure that.
But that sounds like an example of good communications.
Absolutely, and certainly with the CCTV, so they've got our radios as well, so that communication is good. Certainly, some of the guys who have the City Link radio are phenomenal. So I'd say Steve the greengrocer in the middle of town. He is brilliant, like eyes and ears. He knows everything. He can see everything. Certainly on Bridge Street.
Steve the greengrocer.
Steve the greengrocer, absolutely.
Nice one, Steve.
And you know they are certainly getting better as time goes on, and they're using the radio more to getting that communication around. But just going back to this disc app, like we're saying, certainly with older people or offenders who have been around for a long time, people know their faces and they're getting identified quicker, and now it's up to me to make sure that, you know, the investigation part is overseen and made sure that it's done nice and quickly, but as thoroughly as possible, by hopefully developing statement performers, by developing nice, easy kind of step-by-step guides of how these guys, because at the end of the day, the shop owners, you know, certainly the independents, are incredibly busy, and you know, there's examples of shops around the city that only have 1 or 2 staff on, and they're massive shops. So then them having the time to kind of do the extra stuff, you know, report it if they've got their own reporting system within their shop. They've then got to do that, then they've got to do disc, and then they've got to report to the police, and then they've got to... Absolutely.
And all they want to do is get on with their business.
Absolutely.
We're almost out of time, but just to kind of get to it, and that's, you've been in the role since October. It's a really important role for the city centre. What would be a success for you? You've been in the job less than 3 months, or around 3 months. We're into the new year, 2024. You're going to, I can see, because you're a sleeves up kind of guy.
Thank you.
Your sleeves are actually rolled up as well. Yeah. But I can see that this is a role that you really want to get stuck into, and clearly you're the sort of person that wants to make a difference.
Absolutely.
So what is this year going to look like for you if it's a successful year?
So this year, if I can improve the... First off, improve the relationship between the businesses and the police. I think there's been a point where businesses don't feel that they've been listened to, and that's not necessarily within the last year. I think that's kind of a long-term thing. So if I can help improve that, I appreciate it's not necessarily what we'd call a smart target, because it's not necessarily measurable. But if more people are reporting crime, more people are identifying suspects, if we've got more people who are willing to talk to us about their issues, then that would be a success for me.
That's what's one. Give me a couple of other things. That can't be the only.
Obviously, you know, if I, you know, it's a difficult one because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a police officer, so I'm here to help people.
Yeah.
If I say that my main aim is to get 10 arrests a year, like, it seems a bit that's all I want to do, and it's not.
But if the perception in the city centre is that, you know, in the small role that you're going to play in just working to make the city centre feel safer,
yes,
people to feel a little bit less
absolutely
alarmed when they're out and about, particularly in the evenings. You mentioned the business element. Do you see anything, John, to add? I mean, we've got the guy here.
The main thing is perception of the city centre. Surely that going into the city centre is a good thing to do. You're supporting local businesses while feeling safe doing it at the same time. And I guess ultimately one other thing is, and this is not your responsibility, but the safer and better the city is to trade in, the more people will come in and start trading. So you will get more shops and less empty spaces.
Absolutely.
Because we do have quite a few of those.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And that all come hand in hand. You know, once we've worked alongside the safety and security of the city, more people want to come in, and like you say, the traders will want to come in, and hopefully, you know, that will increase even more footfall.
Are you enjoying it?
Love it.
Yeah.
You can see he's loving it, can't you?
Yeah.
You can see that this is a role that you're enjoying.
Yeah, so something I've really enjoyed, and I did it when I was back on North. It was the engagement, council meetings, that kind of thing. I really enjoy this.
Yeah, you're a people person.
Thank you.
As well as a Bobby with a police uniform.
Bobby on the beat. Yeah.
Great to meet you. Thank you for joining us. PCJ Cullimore, police officer for the city centre, part of the Beard Peterborough Positive.